Welcome to Book Watch, the podcast where pages meet screens. I'm your host, Sarah-Daye. Each week, I'll be joined by amazing guests to dive deep into the world of adaptations, comparing beloved books with their cinematic counterparts. From faithful retellings to bold reimaginings, we'll break down what worked, what didn't, and what made each adaptation unforgettable. Whether you're a bookworm, a movie buff, or both, you are in the right place. So grab your bookmark, grab your popcorn, and let's watch some books. Welcome back, listeners, to another special Halloween episode, or I should say October episode, where we're just covering some fun, spooky, horror type books and films. And today I have Jordyn Carita with me again. You might recognize her from our Percy Jackson coverage. But we are going to be covering Dracula / Nosferatu. So, Jordyn, thank you again for joining me and welcome back.
So happy to be back. Thank you for having me.
And like I said, we're going to be covering Dracula, which was written by Bram Stoker in 1897. And I listened to the audio book that had a multiple voice cast, and that included Alan Cumming, Tim Curry, Simon Vance, and more, which was really interesting. So listeners, check that out. And then we're going to be comparing the book. It has had numerous adaptations, but we picked the most recent, which is the 2024 movie directed by Robert Eggers. And we'll get into the cast in a little bit. But Jordyn, let's talk a little bit about kind of like the history of Dracula and why Nosferatu is called Nosferatu. Do you know the history of this?
I do not, actually. I was very confused when I started reading the book, and that word didn't really come up. I was like, okay, so I see Dracula, but then there was no Dracula in the movie, and then there's no Nosferatu in the book. What is going on here? So please enlighten me.
Yes. So the first adaptation, if you will, of Dracula, they did not get the rights to Dracula by Stoker's wife. He had passed and she did not give up the rights. So they still wanted to tell this story. And I should have written this down, but I did not. But I believe it was in the 1920s. And I believe it was like a silent film. So they didn't get the full rights. So they couldn't use the names. So they basically changed all the names. So Dracula is now Orlok, and he is Nosferatu. So, and then
Gotcha.
I'm going to scroll down to my notes here. So, okay, well, let's just get into the cast. So Count Orlok is the Nosferatu Dracula character, and he is played by Bill Skarsgård. And then Ellen is kind of like the Lucy character, and that's played by Lily Rose Depp. Thomas Hutter is her husband in the film, and he's kind of the Jonathan Harker character, which is played by Nicholas Hoult. And then we have Professor Albin Eberhard von Franz, who is the Van Helsing character, which is William Dafoe. And I want to talk more about Van Helsing later on as a character, because I think of Van Helsing as the Hugh Jackman movie, right?
Yeah.
He's played by William Dafoe. And then we've got Knock, which is the Renfield character played by Simon McBurney. So you've got the same characters, you've got the same plot points, but again, the reason why they changed the name was because they didn't have the rights, and they did get in trouble for this. And the film was pulled for a short time. And if what I read on the internet is true, you never know. They actually did destroy the films, but several copies were, of course, not destroyed, and that's why we still have that today, that original 1920s. Now, why Robert Eggers decided to do Nosferatu and not a Dracula, I don't know. I didn't read into that decision too much, but the names are all the same from the 1920s film. And but we were talking a little bit offline that the plot points are very similar to the book.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I haven't seen the original Nosferatu film, so I'd be curious to see the differences between Eggers' version and that original film version of Nosferatu and where he differentiates between
Mhm.
that story. But I think and I don't know either, so this is conjecture, but if I had to guess as to why he went with Nosferatu, because I feel like the name Dracula like carries so much weight, and like all vampires, like when you think of them, you think of Dracula first.
Yeah.
So maybe
Mhm.
he wanted to like separate himself. Like obviously it's still based on that source material of the novel Dracula, but maybe he just wanted to like kind of separate himself, and this is Dracula but like a little bit different, something new, something a little bit more unique. Um and maybe there's something in that 1920s film version that he was like, no, I really want to emulate that and make people think of that as opposed to Dracula. And so that's why he went that way, maybe.
And I think also, again, I don't know either, but Dracula, the character, I feel like always has a little bit of like suaveness to
Mm-hmm.
him, and like seductiveness to him,
Yeah.
whereas Nosferatu is more of a creature.
Yeah. More of like the
And it
monster.
definitely, yes, exactly. Whereas Dracula lures them in with his good looks, and then
Yeah.
Nosferatu lures him in with more of like a calling.
Yeah. And in the book, like the very beginning, when when Jonathan Harker is like first introduced to him and in the castle, he's like, he's very good host. He's very charming. He's very kind. He's like, here, let me take care of you. Like my servants have all gone to bed, so I will make you dinner. And, he's
Mhm.
very like, uh, unassuming in a way at first in the novel versus like from the first moment you see Orlok in 2024 Nosferatu, you're like, that is a monster. That is something other, that is something to be feared, it's something
Mhm.
scary, and he doesn't lure you in with the charms to get you to trust him. It's just like, no, I am what I am and you should fear me right off the bat.
Yeah. Yeah, and I really like the voice that Bill Skarsgård did for
Mm-hmm.
this character. Like he got really deep, um,
Yeah.
and like kind of just added to that, fear factor.
Yeah, I mean it's terrifying, like the
Mhm.
rasping, wheezing breath, and
Yes,
then
the
like
wheezing.
the accent. I'm like, oh, it just makes your spine crawl. It's just uncomfortable to listen to.
Yeah. Well, I think they nailed that then as the
Hmm.
Nosferatu kind of aesthetic.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that kind of like covers the differences between the two, even though they're technically the same character. But um, Dracula, like you said, he kind of defined what we know as the modern vampire.
Hmm.
Um, just kind of shaping horror literature and horror film. And then Nosferatu being the first cinematic adaptation kind of established Gothic horror.
Hmm.
And I think that kind of Edgar's kind of wanted to pull that Gothic horrorness.
Hmm.
So again, like that's probably why he went with the Nosferatu. Like it's very classic horror, I felt. Even
Yeah,
with a modern, like
definitely.
such a modern like aesthetic and like cinematography, but like he
Yeah.
definitely pulled on those like classic horror.
Yeah. Well, and even like for me, the fact that he changed the setting from England to Germany made it more horror like, because I think
Mhm.
like England and like the city of London has always been like such a progressive city. Like they're on the forefront of technology and culture. And so it's kind of hard to think of there being this terrible monster in a modern city like London. But if you take it back to 1837 Germany, all
Mhm.
of a sudden that's a whole nother place. It's a little bit more like um, almost simple in a way to me it felt, and to where it's like, oh yeah, I totally believe that there could be a vampire loose in that city, because
Yes.
that's, yeah, 1837 Germany, of course there was vampires there at that time versus even 1837 London or 1897 when the book was written in London. You're like, no, they've got like trains and
Yes, just a little bit
cars
more
and
hustle
like,
and bustle. Mhm.
yeah, and like there's I feel like it makes it harder to believe in a film
Well,
version, like the costumes and all that kind of stuff.
I feel like that goes back to our conversation about how Dracula, the vampire, is more human in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Like he will
Yes.
blend into that hustle and bustle life, whereas Nosferatu definitely will not blend in. Like he is a monster.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of be out in the middle of nowhere.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
and like in the book too, he Dracula takes time to like learn. He is asking Jonathan
Yes.
Harker all these questions. He's like trying to learn the culture. What is London like? What are your customs? How do you act? All because he wants to be able to blend in and, you know, be a hunter and live amongst his prey. And then Nosferatu is just like, no, I'm just gonna go. I'm just gonna go be a monster and be as I
Mhm.
am. He's not trying to hide himself amongst
Mhm.
the population.
Yeah. Yeah, and even, like, so much so that the townsfolk have rituals to and, like,
Hmm.
sacrifices to keep him at bay.
Yeah, yeah. In Transylvania, they have all these different things and talismans and stuff. And I thought that whole intro to to the movie was really interesting too, because even at that point, before Nicholas Holt as Thomas something,
Thomas Hutter.
Thomas Hutter, thank you. Before he even gets to the castle, he's struggling with like what is real and what am I dreaming, and that theme of like having to distinguish between what am I dreaming, or what is the monster like telling me in my mind versus what's real, perpetuates that whole film. And then even in the book too, like people are like they're having to. It's presented through like diary and letters, and
Yes, which is
so
really
like
cool.
even when they're writing in their own diary, like if I don't write this down, I'm not going to know what's real and what's not real. I have to keep track of what's happening in my waking hours, because when I'm asleep and the demon is like coming to me, I don't know what to believe.
Mhm.
So that was a really fascinating way, like in the cinematography, to show like some, just to establish that confusion of reality versus dreams.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so breaking down kind of, like, the main, um progression of the film, from the book and the film, and then I believe, like, the 1920s film also, but, we kinda covered, his arrival at Dracula's castle versus
Hmm.
Hutter's eerie journey through the snow, um,
Hmm.
and plague-ridden lands. So that was really interesting to see kind of, like, the differences, but also the similarities, like the little old lady saying, "Don't go."
Hmm.
Please don't go, and like the language barrier between the two. Um,
Yeah.
and like that was pretty much pulled directly from the page.
Yeah, yeah. It was very similar, and like it's kind of, it felt like a, I mean, I guess the classic horror movies that I'm thinking of are kind of ripping on this, but like you're being told don't go to that place. That place is bad. That place is dark. It's evil. Like don't go. And it's like, but I have to go.
Mhm.
You feel like this need to go, and it's like the classic like trope of the horror movie, like don't go in there, don't do that, that's not going to end well. And but you're
Mhm.
watching and you just can't stop it from happening. Well, that was cool to be like, oh, this is probably where that trope kind of started, was here.
Um, and the main portion of the story is so in the book, Dracula feeding on Lucy and Mina.
Hmm.
Um, and then in the movie, it's Orlok's obsession with Ellen. And even in the very intro, we get some weird prologue of their first connection, I guess.
Hmm.
um, and then that's carried out throughout the film. And then, um, so just to kind of cap it off, Van Helsing is pulled in with his like battle of science and faith and trying to help. And then Von France's character also trying to help. And then the ending of the story is, you know, the death of this character. Um, with Dracula being defeated by the men.
Mm-hmm.
But in Nosferatu, we have Ellen sacrificing herself by keeping Orlok distracted, and the sunrise happens. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so really interesting to see like the differences between um like the agency that they give the female character in
Mm-hmm.
Nosferatu versus how like the men like hunt him down to protect the females.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting to kind of flip that. And I guess it kind of speaks more to the time in which each of these
Mhm.
was written. Because for the men to be the one to defeat the monster to save the woman, makes sense for 1897 and
Mhm.
would make sense even today. And a lot of stories, it's still, the femme fatale, or the female character
Damsel in
being saved.
distress. Yes.
Yes, that's what I went. That's what I wanted. Sorry. Yeah, and letting the men kind of do like the gross hard work of like killing the beast, to save the maiden's honor or whatnot. But to give Ellen the power through her sacrifice, I thought was very fascinating, and it kind of made sense in through the 2024 lens, because like Dracula or Orlok is preying on mostly women. Like he
Mhm.
messes with Thomas, but he was only killing. We only see him really kill Anna, Emma Corwin's character, and then the two daughters, and then he's been hunting Helen the whole time.
Mhm.
So to for like the women who are the primary prey of this creature to be given that opportunity to be the ones who destroy
Mhm.
the creature and defeat him, I thought was a nice little modern twist
Exactly.
on it, to be like, like we're the ones being hunted, so we're going to be the ones to take him down.
Yes, love that. Girl power.
Period slay.
um so is there anything else you kind of want to talk about the book and the story before we kind of get into our kind of final thoughts?
I think it was interesting how the film kind of took the Ellen and kind of made her a combination of Lucy and Mina from the
Mhm.
book, because she kind of is doing double duty, because she's playing like the Thomas/Jonathan character's wife, and then
Mhm.
she's also playing the role of Lucy, where like she's the at least like through the first
Desire.
half of the book, she's the first person that has like the connection with with the count, with the vampire character, and like is the one being hunted and like going through all of these, like not being able to sleep and like having her blood taken and like that kind of part of it um was interesting. And then like uh oh my gosh, Aaron Taylor Johnson's character, like gone. just just not here. But then on the other side, um the doctor's there, but then like Lucy, because Lucy doesn't exist in the film, the two other men who are courting her and wanting her hand, they don't really exist either. It's
Right.
kind of been, everything has kind of been like narrowed down and simplified for the film, which makes sense, is in a
Yeah,
film you don't have as
exactly.
much time to explore all the different characters and their motivations and stuff. But Van Helsing is very fascinating to me, so I'm excited to get, as we dive more into each character, to talk more about him.
Yeah, and I don't remember really the movie at all, the Van Helsing movie. But like I always envisioned Van Helsing as being like a vampire hunter or monster
Mm-hmm.
hunter. So to get this like other side of him where it's like so science based,
Yeah,
it was just a really interesting like um difference, like different character.
yeah, yeah. And again, speaking to like the time period when it was written, that
Mhm.
makes more sense, because like you don't really have like the adventurer warrior archetype really.
Right.
All quote unquote great men, they want to be learned men of science, men of study and books, and like that's how you like show that you are a high class gentleman. And
Right.
so to like have that timeliness from 1897 again, of he without him they can't defeat the monster because he's the one who has all of this knowledge, but his power is in his knowledge, not necessarily in his physical power. Like he talks about how like, I'm an old man, like I'm much weaker than you other young men around me, like
Mm-hmm.
I can't do all these same things that you can do, but he's the one with all the knowledge where nobody else can act without him kind of leading
Mm-hmm.
the way like that.
It would be kind of cool to see a TV show adapt this, and really get into those kind of nuances, and see like get into the character arcs that the book shows you, because we said, you have to cut down a lot of that, and you have
Mm-hmm.
to combine characters when you're adapting such a long book into a movie when you only have 2 hours or so. So I mean, I know something like HBO could do a really good job, whether it's Dracula or Nosferatu. Like, I would like to see like an actual um adaptation of the book with the name Dracula, but um Nosferatu does have some interesting, pieces to it, like some
Mm-hmm.
changes that could be cool to see, like bring Dracula to life, but include parts of Nosferatu as well.
Yeah, I'd love to see like a more faithful adaptation to the book, and like we totally can include some of those elements that are unique to Nosferatu, but I don't know that a like page by page, line by line adaptation of Dracula has ever been done. I think it's more of like different artists throughout time taking the aspects of it that
Mhm.
like you know that click with them and then kind of making their own thing out of it, which is also cool because that the fact that this one novel like doesn't have any sequels, doesn't have any follow-ups, it just is a standalone thing,
Right.
created this whole universe of vampires where now we've got Twilight and stuff like that promote vampires and like they're a huge part of our culture today. Like
Yes.
I would love to see like a really like dedicated adaptation where it's like
Mhm.
every single bit of it is by the book and how that impacts us.
Yes, I mean, like, and I wanna talk about the cultural impact that Dracula had because, um, like you said, I mean, we've got Twilight, True Blood, like, every generation kind of has its own vampire story, and it'll be cool to kind of go back and see, like, okay, here's Dracula, and then what was next, and then what was next, and what got us to the Twilight and True Blood of today,
Yeah.
and, we're still like, we just had the Nosferatu in 2024, and so, vampires and werewolves and all of those kind of, like, Transylvanian spooky Halloween themed characters,
Hmm.
all stemmed from this book.
Yeah, basically this and Frankenstein.
Yes, Frankenstein also. Mhm. Yeah. So anything else? I know it's kind of a quick episode, but anything else you want to talk about the Dracula and this adaptation, or the cultural impact of Dracula before we hop off?
um hmm. Well, I guess I'll turn it back to you and see like was there any of the changes made from the book into the film that had you kind of scratching your head? Like, why did they do that?
Mm, not Not anything that really was scratching my head, because I think that Edgar's took a lot from the 1920s, and
Hmm.
the reason why the 1920s adaptation had to change so much was so that it didn't get in trouble for copywriting, although they did. Anyway,
Yeah.
but, so no, nothing that's really scratching my head. Like, I thought it was a really interesting artistic adaptation. But what I do like in general from the book is that Ellen is the one, like, I mean, I hate that she has to sacrifice herself, but
Hmm.
um I do like that it is her that brings down the downfall of him, instead of like the men going to hunt him down like the beast.
Yeah. Well, and they still use that plot point as like because they know that Nicholas Holt's character won't want his wife to willingly sacrifice herself. Like, he
Right.
loves her, so he doesn't want her to do that. So they still use the men going off to fight the battle to kill
Mhm.
the monster as a plot point to keep him away so that his wife can do what needs to be done. And I
Mhm.
think the conversation between Von Franz and Ellen in the film was actually really sweet because like they both know what has to happen. They both have like,
Mm.
because Orlok has come to her and said like, I'm gonna keep killing people until
Yeah.
you give yourself up to me. And the doctor, like, they find, the book from the Renfield character, and that explains like what has to happen in order to defeat the monster. And so they both just have to have this sad understanding with each other of like, yeah, like, you have to die and you have to sacrifice yourself and you have to make this choice, this terrible choice, to do it for everybody else around you, for your
Mhm.
loved ones, and for, even the strangers in the town, like, just so that they aren't, because they added
Slaughtered.
the yeah, they just are not part of the slaughter, because they added the plague aspect in the film, where
Yeah.
the rats, the plague ship and the rats are coming around infecting everybody. And so it's like, it's not just you and your husband that are in danger, like, the whole city is in danger. And so, it's a terrible thing to have to ask of you, this young woman, this young wife, to do, but it has to be you. And she's just, to me, like, she's so quiet, but she's still so brave at the same time,
Yes, exactly.
to know it and accept it and be like, yeah, I know what I have to do, and so I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna do what has
Mhm.
to be done.
Yeah.
um I think that that type of bravery is not, and to me, it's a very female type of bravery.
Mhm.
It's very unique to being a woman, where like, we're not as prone to fits of bravado the way that men are, where they're like, I'm gonna beat my chest and swing my sword and rah and go out and fight. It's like that quiet resignation of like, I know what must be done, and so I'm going to do it even though I'm scared and I don't want to.
Mhm.
That's that that feminine bravery, I thought, was really beautifully portrayed in the film.
Exactly. Yes, 100% agree with you. Yeah. Which medium do you think told the story better?
I think the the text is really dense. There's a lot going on, and a lot of it, like, I'm flipping back into the like, the notes to see like what things mean all the time. So I think, like, as far as being approachable to a wider audience, definitely the film, because it's very easy to follow, it's easy to understand, and it's a lot more accessible. Um, but I mean, I'm a book girl first and foremost,
Mhm.
so I'm always gonna say that the book is better. But like, you really have to kind of take your time and like go through it slowly to fully grasp everything that's happening, just because the language of the time can be confusing to for me as a 2000s person. Um, so that's kind of where I would stand on it.
Yeah, and like I said, I enjoyed listening to the audiobook, and I've always been a fan of, stories that use a unique way of telling the story, like whether it's like dual timelines or like this where it was letters and you're getting all the information from letters, or like Daisy Jones and the Six where it's
Hmm.
pieces of interviews. So I always love reading a book like that that has a different way of storytelling.
Yeah, yeah. I thought I'd like to read I'd like to read it all from Dracula's point of view, because that's
Yes.
something that we don't get in the book, and we like kind of get his motivations in
Hmm.
Nosferatu, but like, I really want, like, how did he become a vampire in the first place? Because we in the book,
Yeah.
we at least we watch how he turns Lucy,
Right.
but how did he get turned, and is there another like generation before him that's still running around, or like, how did he come to exist in the first place? I'd love to hear
Yeah.
that from
Yeah,
Bram
exactly. I
Stoker.
would love that too. I like even, yeah, I mean, where like the first vampire, where did he come from? And like
Mhm.
how did this disease or whatever you want to call it be
Yeah.
created?
Yeah, because I
Yeah.
mean, like, I don't, you using the word disease made me think of like Edward Cullen, and like he, like his struggle with being a vampire, like he feels like he has no soul, and like that he is like, because he's, undead, that he's like inherently evil, and he's,
Right.
he doesn't want to do that to Bella. So like I wonder if Dracula, but like no other, him and like the Cullen family are very unique in that like thinking. And so I
Mhm.
wonder if, if Dracula ever struggled with that, or had that thought of like, I am a monster, I'm evil, I should try and,
Right.
not do that. Or if he was from day one, like if he sought it out, maybe. Because
Mm.
again, like in the film, there's the book of the occult that Von Frock looks at,
Mhm.
and it says how to kill him. So somebody had this knowledge and put it in a book at some point. So
Mhm.
is there also knowledge on how to attract a vampire, how to become a vampire? Did he, just
Mhm.
getting, I mean, spooky season, I love villains and talking about villains and getting into their
And their
minds. So like I'd
motivations,
love,
yes.
yeah, like I said, I'd love to, I wish we could know what motivation Bram Stoker would have given Dracula if he had written Dracula
Mm.
from the Count's point
Yeah.
of view.
I love that. Yeah, that's really fascinating. I would love to know that also.
Yeah,
Good call. Okay, well, anything else before we hop off?
I think that covers it.
Great. Well, thank you once again for joining me. And listeners, go join us in the Facebook Lounge, and tell us your thoughts on Dracula, or maybe who your favorite Halloween villain is, whether it's Dracula or a witch or Frankenstein and his monster. And we will see you next week. It is a fifth week of October. So we're going to do a little bonus episode where we talk about just fun Halloween traditions. And Jordan will be joining me, as well as Chris. So please don't miss out and subscribe.
See you guys next week then.
Bye. That's a wrap for today's episode of Book Watch. I hope you enjoyed this journey into the world of page-to-screen adaptations. If you loved today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, review wherever you listen to podcasts, and share it with your fellow book and movie lovers. If you'd prefer to watch along, you can check the show out on YouTube. You can follow the show on Instagram at Bookwatch Podcast, and you can follow me, Sarah-Daye, on Instagram at captain.mcdee. That's MCDEE. You can also join the conversation in the Book Watch Lounge on Facebook at www.facebook.com/groups/bookwatchlounge. If you would like to support the podcast, you can join the Patreon at www.patreon.com/bookwatchpodcast. Tiers start at only $4 a month, and I'd love to have you over there. If you have a favorite adaptation you'd like to cover with me, I'd love for you to apply to be on the show with the contact form on our website at www.bookwatchpodcast.com. Until next time, keep reading, keep watching, and I'll see you next week.